We're all familiar with the image of Jesus Christ on the cross. We've seen it in movies, paintings, books, in church cathedrals. But how exactly do you die from being put on a cross? The concept of executing someone by impaling their body to a post can first be seen as being practiced by the ancient Persians. The earliest written record describes King Darius I crucifying 3,000 political opponents in Babylon. The Romans specifically used it as a means of punishing insurgencies and political rebellions. For example, at the end of the Third Civil War, Marcus Crassus, after defeating the rebel forces led by Spartacus, decreed that 6,000 of his followers were to be crucified in a single day, and that their bodies be displayed along a single road spanning 120 miles. It was very rare that a Roman citizen of noble birth would be crucified. This was a punishment reserved only for the lowest of the low. So when your hands and feet are nailed to a cross, how does it kill you? First of all, there was no standard method of crucifying someone. You could be crucified in a seated position, be hanged upside down, but there are some common factors. But since we're talking about the death of Jesus in this series, I'm going to assume his example as our precedent. Let's start with the upper body. Hanging from the arms for any considerable length of time is painful. Once the muscles give out, it is excruciating. Shoulders separate from the sockets and the overall arm length can lengthen by several inches. After a person's arms had come out of their sockets, the chest would sag downwards, stretching out to its full extent. Now, if you strenuously stretch out your arms, even while seated, you'll recognize the difficulty. It's easy to inhale with the arms fully outstretched, but difficult to exhale again. The body needs to work its muscles to breathe in and out, and it is used to doing so with little resistance. But once the chest is fully expanded, it's impossible to breathe in anything more than a few gasps of air. The victim slowly suffocates. You can't move your chest and upper body in order to get air into the lungs. The most logical thing to do would be to try to push up from your legs. But that would not be easy if your feet are nailed together. To make matters worse, sometimes the victim would be placed on the cross with their legs bent or with their feet tucked under their buttocks. And as you're pushing up trying to get that one last breath of air, your body is using up its energy until your muscles are exhausted and you just go limp. You lose control of your bodily functions. You sweat. You will most likely become incontinent. In the climate of ancient Israel, the extreme heat will cause you to become dehydrated, while the nights will be freezing. Once you're on the cross, there is absolutely no chance of surviving unless someone were to actually cut you down. And looking at the example of Jesus, let's remember that just prior to being placed on the cross, he had been whipped, beaten with rods, and scourged. His muscles would have been literally torn to shreds, and he would have lost several liters of blood as he made his way to Golgotha. So this is how crucifixion will kill you. You will be physically exhausted, you will suffocate, you will be left at the mercy of your environment. This is not like an execution by the electric chair or lethal injection that's fast and easy. Death by crucifixion will take several hours, if not days, of the most intense pain that can be inflicted upon a human being. And this is not something done privately behind closed doors. This was in public, in the marketplace, or high in the hills where everyone could see it. And once you have died, there is no burial or memorial service. You're left there to rot. The body is only disposed of once it has decayed to the point that the cross will no longer hold it. If you were to die by crucifixion, it would be a death without dignity, without honor. You will be treated as filth on display. And yet God saw fit to use this terrible act in his plan of redemption. The prophet Isaiah said of the coming Messiah, "Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned, everyone, to his own way. And the Lord laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed, he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. Like a lamb led to the slaughter, like a sheep that before its shearers is silent. So he opened not his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off of the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people. And they made his grave with the wicked, and with a rich man in his death, although he had done no violence, and there was no deceit in his mouth. Yet it was the will of the Lord to crush him. He has put him to grief. When his soul makes an offering for guilt, he shall see his offspring. He shall prolong his day. The will of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. Out of the anguish of his soul he shall see and be satisfied. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore I will divide him in a portion with the many, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul to death, and was numbered with the transgressors. Yet he bore the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressor. Let me repeat this point. Tens of thousands of people were crucified like Jesus throughout ancient history. The reason why Jesus is remembered and celebrated is that Jesus was different from all of them. He was a man who was sinless. But on top of that, he was God, who became man. So the reason we celebrate Jesus, and we don't know the names of these other people who were crucified, is simply not because Jesus was crucified, but he is superior and different from all others who have ever been executed for a crime they didn't commit.